Assalamu alaikum dear viewers, how are you? I hope everyone will be fine. In the series of learning programming, in the previous video, I have discussed about the constant and C language, right? That constant that can never be changed while programming, while coding the program, right? That can never change during the execution of the programming, right? So and also tell you what are valid constant and what are invalid constant, right? All and each and everything has cleared in the previous video. In this video I'll describe to you what is variable and why do we need variable and how to declare it, and also describe to you what are valid and invalid variables, right? And some rules to construct a variable, right? So let's start. See, when we print any statement on the screen, right, you simply use the printf function and print that statement on the display screen, right? So here is no need of any variable, right? Because you can many statements print on the screen without any variable, right? But if you want to perform computational task on the computer, right, for example you perform the work on the values, then there is a need of variables. Why? Because let's suppose this is the computer memory, right? And here you store the value. First value is that 10, and second value is that 30, and third value is that 50, right? So now you have entered three values in the computer that are stored in the memory, but when these values stored in the memory, they are stored into the memory in a random location. So now the user that have entered that value, he cannot knows that where he has stored the values and where it values has been stored into the memory. So memory gives any random address of these values. For example, here address is 1000, right? And here address is 1000. So memory give them that values random address, right? So user not know where its data has been stored into the memory. How will access the user data, right? There is a need of the names that knows the user and user can access by that name, right? So if the user name give name here A and here B and here C, now user want to access these values and perform on any action on that values, no user can easily access by their names, right? So actually these names A, B, C, so these are called variables, right? So this is called variables. No programmer can easily access that values and perform any actions on that values, right? So for example user perform any actions on that values. For example, user want to add two values, right? A plus B, right? So here is that the statement means that A and B are going to plus and stored into C, right? So here will be A 10 and B is 30, right? So 40 will be stored into the C, but programmer do this name as a sum. Why? Any other programmer can easily understand what is the meaning of this variable, right? I will also describe what is valid variable and what is not variable. So it is valid variable. Any other meaningful name we can use it here, right? So this is the meaningful name of sum, right? So any other programmer can easily understand this statement is going to be addition of two numbers, any numbers, right? So that's why we can use here sum. If we want to perform average on that values, we can keep variables average. Any name we can give to the variables, right? So variable always need computational task on the values, right? So programmer easily access these values from the memory. How to will give value? So if I give 10, so now a 10, so here 10 would be assigned to that variables, right? If I write b, then write 40, so here 40 will be stored into the memory, right? And c, if I write here 50, so 50 will be stored into the memory. So in this way we store the data into the variable. So next thing is that why we set variables, right? Because we can change value at every steps, right? So for example, I give that variables value 10, so this variable hold the value 10. We can change in next step the value 20. So next 20 value would be assigned to this variable. So this value would be finished from the memory and 20 value would be stored in the variable of a, right? So we can use any values and change this value into our program, right? So if I give value 100, right, now there two values will be finished, 100 value will be stored into the memory, right? So that's why these are variable names, right? That why its value can change at every time in the program, right? So in the real life temperature is also a variable, right? So because our temperature changes throughout the day, whenever it is warm, whenever it is cold. So this is a also variable example of the real life. So next I'll describe to you how to declare variables in C. First of all, we write data types. So in this way we can declare any variable in C, right? First of all, we have to describe the data type in C. What is the meaning of data type? What type of the variable we are going to declare that hold the data, what's data type would be, right? So that's why we used data type. For example, I here use int and variable name is that sum, right? So it means that I have declared a variable the name of sum and it's going to store data, integer data type. Integer data type is that simply that number that not have decimal point in that values, right? So these are called integer data type. So now this variable going to store data, float data type, right? What is type of float data type? Float data type is that 10.30 that have decimal point. It means that this variable is going to store data that is decimal point. If we want to perform action on character values, then we use char data type, right? So this means that it will going to store data character data type, right? So here I a, that's mean this variable store data character type of data, right? So if I write here a is equal to a, so this is variable name and this is the character, right? So a character has been stored into this variable. This a and this a is not equal because this is a character and this is the variable name. If we print this variable percent with percentage d specifier, then 97 value would be displayed on the screen. If we write here percentage c, then a would be displayed on the screen. So this is the initialization of the variable, right? When we initialize the variable, when you write in this way in the memory, as location is occupies to store data into data type, right? So if we write here 20, then into memory here 20 would be stored, right? So 20 will be assigned to the a, right? So this is the declaration of the variable and this is the initialization of the variable. So in the single statement we can declare a variable and initialization of the variable, right? So if I write int a equal to 20, so rather than we can use two statements, we can we can write in a single statement initialization of the variable, declaration of the variable, right? So initialization is the variable by giving value to a variable is called initialization of the variable, right? So now we let's see that what are valid variable and what is invalid variable, right? I write sum, this is valid variable. Here write I average, this is valid variable, right? Here I write AB, so this is valid variable. AC, this is the valid variable, right? So this is also valid variable, right? And here I write sum, this is also valid variable, right? So if we write sum percentage 1 2, so this is the wrong, that wrong variable, right? Because we cannot use any special characters in our variables, right? So that's why this is the invalid variable, right? So it will give you error. Any special character will use into the variable when you use with the variables, that will give you error, right? And next is that 1 2, so this is also invalid variable because we cannot use digits before in the starting of the variables, right? So this is the invalid of the variables, right? If I write, so here is that I have used underscore. So underscore is allow in the variables that we can use, but some space 12, so this will be wrong. In the if we write any space in our variable, then it will give you error, right? So space we cannot use in the variable, right? So next is point is that you cannot use any keywords that are used in C language, right? So there is 32 keywords in C language that are used in C language, right? So from that keywords we cannot use any variable name, right? For example, I write here printf. You cannot use this variable because this is the keywords of the C language, right? So this you will have to need to take care, right? If I write for, so this is also invalid. We cannot use. If I write if, so this is the keywords of the C language, right? That are used to do some performing actions on the statements, right? So that's why we cannot use these keywords for variables, right? So any keywords that are used in C language, for example, break, include, switch, you cannot use any keywords for the variables, right? So next, difference of the variables, right? So if I write here num and also write here num and also write here num, so this is the three different types of the variables, because first because in first variable, first is capital R small letters, right? So here is all small letters and here is all capital letters. So that's why this is so these are three different types of the variables, because because C is case sensitive language. So that's why this is the three different types of the variables, right? So this thing you need to take care, right? So I hope, so this is the all about the variables. So in the next video I'll describe to you keywords in the C language, right? Till then, take care of you. I'll see you in the next video.